All right, Steve.
Lead, follow, or get out of the way.
We're going to talk about leadership. You want to stick around and watch this one.
Hey, Steve. How's it going?
Good.
Hey, everybody. I'm Steve Wastenberg.
And I'm Steve Walsh.
And welcome to the Steve and Steve Show. Steve's laughing because he's got some topic that he just came up with.
Yep. So thanks for finding us. If you haven't hit subscribe, please do so. And if you enjoy or think you have a comment to add, do so in the comments. Let us know what you think of the show, and certainly would like to hear from you, and it would help the algorithms of our whatever platform we're on these days.
And press that like and that like and that like, and tell everybody else to press that like. What are we doing today?
All right, so the reason why I was laughing is because just as I was hitting the record button, I threw out the topic to Steve, and, and he didn't bat an eye. So.
No, let's just do it. It's on leadership.
Leadership. So I'm sure you've seen the pictures where there's a group of guys pulling a big cement block, and on top of the cement block there's a dude with a whip.
Yes.
Right? And then the opposite picture of that is the same group of people pulling the cement block, but instead of the whip, there's a guy in the group pulling with, and he has a megaphone.
Megaphone, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So one is the boss who's whipping everybody and saying,
pull,
pull, right? And then the other guy who's pulling with the megaphone saying, let's pull, let's pull, right?
1, 2, 3, pull.
Yeah.
1, 2, yeah.
So there's a difference between, like the topic that I want to touch base is like, what does it make, what's when we talk about leadership, right? What are some good qualities of a leadership that you've experienced or that you've seen? Or, what when you think about a good leader, what kind of traits do they have?
Well, I just wonder if I could sit up on the block with the megaphone. Could I kind of change it a little bit and get a good ride while I'm...
Could be.
That's not a great leader either. The leader's got to roll up their arms and their sleeves and get themselves a little dirty, I think, also. And my experience is that is a great leader. For example, in the military, when we were in the military, we most respected the officers that actually came up from the enlisted ranks, which is, all the way through privates, through the non-commissioned officer ranks of the sergeants and above, that came up through those ranks, what we call the troops, and then became an officer because they had the experience of being the soldier, if you will, that was, in the mix on the ground, not as opposed to someone who went to college, graduated college, jumped into a little course for a period of time, and became an officer directing, soldiers what to do. Or even those that were in ROTC, where they'd be in the kind of an ROTC program in college, get out and somehow have experience as an officer. And frankly, usually in the Army, they were a captain before they actually got somewhere.
Right. And with the military, when you go through ROTC, and I'm sure at the academies as well, you go through the lieutenant ranks, right, to get to captain, but it's usually just based off of time.
It is. So, yeah, it is.
But in your military, were there not like some good lieutenants that showed great leadership quality? Like you're like, this guy's all right.
I don't remember any, but I am sure there were. Actually, though, there was a captain that I had that was a West Point captain, and I do kind of have a little different idea about, say, West Point, because they were going not just through college, they were going through a very intensive military school at the same time. So I had a little different view of that. And this West Point was he was my commander, and he was just absolutely terrific. But then I met other West Pointers who were just jerks.
Yeah.
Absolute, had no connection to it. So there is that. I love the way you started this with the whip There are plenty of people, usually the reason they have the whip is because they don't have the knowledge or confidence of being in the trenches.
Right. Or they they can't relate.
Yeah.
Right. And so they don't really know
Or
what's
they
going
don't
on.
want to relate because they're superior.
Right. So and the reason why I brought this topic up, because on the way over I was listening to Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Oh,
and
yeah,
there's a
great.
section in there that talks about leadership.
Okay.
And some people are put into leadership positions, right? And others earn their leadership position.
Right.
And those that earn their leadership position have a tendency to be a good leader, right? Because they've gone through those trials or have at least some exposure to understand what's going on. Right?
They have a rich experience or a wealth of experience.
Right. Or
And empathy, right?
Yeah. So I was thinking that, and you had a good example of the military, because I think that's a good place where you do get some of these colleges and even the academy where they're kind of plopped in there, right? Maybe school's easier for them. Maybe when you're going through ROTC, and that's what I did in college. It's only a piece of college, right? Mm-hmm. There's one night, 2 nights, and then there's the classroom of the ROTC experience, and then we'll have the weekend deals, and then we'll have a little bit of experience during the summer camps. But it's a piece of life, so you really don't get that full-blown experience of going through boot camp and doing the hard work. So there is that kind of attitude, but I think there's a lot of good leaders that come out of ROTC.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
That understand the leadership concepts, right? They've done a lot of personal development to get in there. Maybe they had some tough jobs while they were going through college, or even afterwards, or they did a lot of think through, how do I want to be a good leader, right? But the key is when someone's plopped in and said, you're a manager now without having any experience, they have a tendency to look around and go, well, if I'm going to get these guys to perform, they're telling me I got to look at the metrics and manage the metrics, and so that's what I'm going to do, and do whatever I can to get those metrics to
And
come
out comes the whip.
Right.
Yep.
So that's where the disconnect comes, right?
Yeah.
Where a good leader can look at something and go, I remember when I was doing this, and if I'm going to ask somebody to do that, I better be ready to step in.
Yep.
Right?
Another example for me is in business. Always loved to see business leaders that, say, had created a company from the ground up, went through the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune building, and became a leader. And then they go and lead in another place because they've got that wealth of in the trenches kind of experience. And I compare that to, frankly, which is why a lot of the MBAs that, this is a bias, but a number of the MBAs that come just straight out of school and jump into some sort of a leadership position, they're like living in a theoretical world in school. They get into a business where it's really dealing with people and working with people,
right.
And they just don't really know what to do. And so the easiest thing to go to is the whip.
Yeah.
Because
so you're picking on two things. You picked on the ROTC guys, and you picked on MBAs.
Both of which, no, you've got a wealth of experience in the business world.
Well, that's the thing. I went in the business world first,
Yeah.
and then went back to school, got my MBA.
Absolutely.
And I think doing that added a lot of value to my MBA because I had real life experiences I could tap into and understand the material that I was learning to make it more solid versus truly living in a theoretical real world and trying to run based off of what I remember in a book.
I'll bet you contributed a great deal to the actual student teaching experience.
I think everybody wanted to be on their team.
Well, so I mean, that's key. And I would even extend that to, think of our colleges. The majority of the professors that are doing their thing are academic. They have not done the things they're teaching.
Yeah.
They have learned about companies and businesses, and they're teaching it from an academic standpoint, and it's very theoretical. Same thing, frankly, with a lot of other things. It's when you get into the real world and start teaching something, which is why I think, and I know there are some schools that they take people from the business world and put them into a teaching position and say, here, teach. Those people have a great deal of experience.
Yeah, those were, when I was in college, those were my favorite teachers.
Yeah.
The ones that came back in. And they would have like a consulting business on the side, or that was their main thing, and they were a part-time teacher, right? And it wasn't because they wanted to be a teacher. They were coming back to because they saw what the schools were producing and said, I got to do something about
and
this.
Give back.
And
right?
do that give back. It wasn't about the money at that point for them. It was about training the next generation because they saw the lack of that, right? And so that was a value add that they provided. But it was truly the best teachers. Now, when I do in management, when I'm managing a team, the question I always have for myself is this something that I would ask myself to do?
That's a great question.
Right. There's times where I need to have the expert come in, especially on a technical side. I may not know, but is it something that if I did know that, would I put myself in that position to lead and do? And absolutely, right. There's very rare do I send myself and say, put somebody in a position where it looks like it might be risky. And if it is, where I think there's a lot of risk going on here, I usually participate as someone that can lead the group through that scenario.
Although I will say there is an area, and there's probably others, but there is an area where that leadership can be very uncomfortable, and that is when you got to let somebody go, or it comes down the line that there's a reduction in force, a rift that has to happen for 25% of your group. And you know that 25% of your group is really going to affect that team in a very bad way. But the company says you got to do it.
Right. So,
and people say, hey, that's why you're a leader.
You have to have those moments, right, when you become that manager and a true leader, right? But if I had a manager on my team and I said you gotta let your team member go, and I hadn't let somebody go, that would be out of integrity for me, because I believe in the process of lead by example. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Now I've had to let people go in the past, and that first one was not fun. I actually had my manager come with me, but it was once I had that first one, then I knew, okay, I can do this, right? But then asking someone else to do it is not a big issue for me, because I have done that before. So I know that, it might be a stretch for you, but you can get through it. Here's some tips. Now go off and take care of it. But I would not ask somebody to go do something if I hadn't done it before. To an extent, right? There's certain things that they're an expert for that reason. They've done it before. It might be a stretch in this scenario, but they know what they're doing. So you kind of have to have that judgment call there. Yeah,
absolutely. So, well, have we hit the leadership there?
Yeah, I think the point is, if someone's put into a position and they lack that knowledge and able to provide that example, right? They may struggle to be a great leader. But if they're coming through the ranks or have an experience where they've lived through that, or they look at it from like, okay, how do I do something if I have never done that, or I wouldn't do it myself, then there's a little bit of an integrity there, and they may lack in their ability to be a good leader.
I totally agree, so if you're out there and you've got some experience right now, it should be something that you consider really turning into a leadership position, because it's kind of like that person who did really well in business and they come back into the academic world to give back. Because if you've got those kind of leadership skills and traits, you're actually going to learn a lot more by teaching others that and by leading in that way than simply, moving through life with zero responsibility.
Right. Yep. All right, Steve.
All right.
Well, thanks for getting this far in the video. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and if you certainly enjoyed this show, hit that like button.
Please.
And if you do have a comment, make a comment, because that always helps our algorithms with whatever platform we are currently on.
And get out there and lead, follow, or get out of the way.
Get out of the way.
Cheers.